Hello everybody, this is Tech with Gearhead Gaming, and in this video I'll be going over the Mage cards for the new set, the Witchwood. So, Mage had a pretty strong, arguably tier 1 deck going into rotation, which was Secret Mage, sort of a tempo burn style deck that really powered itself with Alneth and the ability to kill off control locks and cube locks, even as they were hiding behind their wall of Void Lords. Secret Mage has lost a lot in the rotation, though, and not quite just to the rotation, but also to the Hall of Faming of Ice Block. I played Secret Mage quite a bit, and I feel that Ice Block was an essential card to the list. I ran two in my list, actually. Some people I've seen, though, go without Ice Block, but either way, the fact that you've lost Cabal Lackey and Cabal Courier, sorry, not Cabal Courier, Cabal Crystal Runner, means that the deck has lost a lot of its power level. It'll probably still see play, but I think more as a tier 2 list, and not as the sort of the counter to control lock that we once saw it. Instead, I think that in this rotation, Mage has been given some pretty strong tools to build a Zoo Mage that I think in all likelihood will be running an Elemental package. I think that these sort of mid-range Zoo type lists will be stronger in the meta going forward, because I think that Control and Q Block are going to wane just a little bit, or they're still going to be tier 1, but they're going to be a smaller share of the meta as some counters appear. And a Zoo style deck might have some room to see play. I think it really depends on the meta, but I think that the tools are there, and Mage looks like it's going to probably still have a decently strong deck going forward. So let's get to the cards. First off, we have what will probably be the namesake of the Zoo. We'll call it an Arugal Zoo. This card seems like it'll fit really well in the deck. It's a 2-mana 2/2. Whenever you draw a minion, add a copy of it to your hand. It's a very powerful effect. This is, just in terms of raw power level, a pretty strong card. And I think there are a lot of cards that work very well with this that have been released. And so I think that this card is going to have a lot of backup. It has a deck that it'll be able to find a home in. And I think you're going to see a pretty good amount of this card. It's a really good way to generate resources as a sort of mid-rangey Zoo, aggressive Zoo type deck. And I expect it to see a lot of play. This next card, though, I think is the main reason why Zoo will be a powerful archetype for Mage, and that is Book of Specters. This card is just insanely powerful. It's 2 mana, draw 3 cards, discard any spells drawn. Obviously, you couldn't run this in a spells-only Mage, but even if you had 10 spells in your deck, let's say, you'd still have a pretty good chance of drawing 3 cards, and on average, you'd still be drawing about 2 cards, right? The numbers are a little bit off because this is one of the cards that you'd presumably be playing, right? So you wouldn't have it in your deck to potentially draw with, but still, I mean, even if it's 2 mana draw 2, this card is good. Right? 2 mana draw 2 is perfectly fine. I don't care if I mill a card from my deck when I do it. 2 mana draw 3 is pretty insane, and so I think this card is going to be a powerhouse. It's going to be like Alneth, one of these cards that really dictates the sort of Mage decks that you want to run. It's going to be one of the cards that really defines what you're trying to do as Mage. This one pushes you to be playing more minions, although it also notably allows you to draw Frostlich Jaina and allows you to draw Alneth, which are 2 of the other most powerful cards in Mage. I think this is like Call to Arms level power. This is really one of these very pushed cards. I think it's the reason why Mage is going to be relevant going forward. I think any deck that you make should probably be trying to work Book of Specters into it. You might have to cut down a little bit on your spell count to be able to achieve that, but even if you're a deck that has, again, 10 spells, I think this card belongs in your deck, because it's in most circumstances just an improvement to Arcane Intellect. You really have to be like a deck that's planning on going to Fatigue to really not want to run this. In that case, you probably wouldn't want to run a lot of card draw. You wouldn't even want to run Arcanologist in those instances. But I think that this card is going to be a mainstay of Mage going forward. I think you might have a choice between like it and Alneth that you have to make, but I think this one is going to be more flexible, and is what's going to be a lot of Mages choose going forward. Next up, we have Snap Freeze. This card is bad. This card is a better Shatter, but Shatter was just so horrendously awful that this card is also bad. I think the main reason this card was printed because they wanted to have Shatter as an available card, but they realized a lot of people were having these feel bad periods where they randomly generate Shatter and they literally just couldn't play it on anything. And that felt really bad. At least here you could freeze a minion with it. You could use it as a 2-mana freezing potion, which isn't good, but at least you could play it. And I think that's what they're going for here. A bad card that at least, at minimum, you could play for some amount of value, whereas Shatter was often just a completely dead card. But still, this card is awful. The only reason you care about it is because it's in the pool of random spells you might generate as Mage. Next up, we have Black Cat. This card's fantastic. I mean, the power level is great. This is a 3-mana 3/3 draw card with spell damage. It's miniature Azure Drake, but even better because Azure Drake was only a 4/4 and that costs 5 mana. So obviously this is a very strong card, but of course the restriction is you can only play it in odd mages. I don't think odd mage is going to actually be that good. I think through my theory crafting, the odd mage is probably going to be a sort of control-y type deck that's running like Jaina and is looking to kind of go long. But I don't know. I think that I think that this card, this deck archetype isn't going to make it, and so I think therefore this card isn't going to make it. But if Odd Mage is a thing, then this card is going to show up in every Odd Mage pretty much. It's going to be part of the reason you want to play Odd Mage, in fact. And so in the case where that happens, this card is an auto include 2 of. But I'm thinking that it isn't going to be, and so I don't think this card is going to be that significant. I only give it 2 stars. Next up we have Cinderstorm. This card's bad. This card is like Arcane Missiles, but worse because it costs 2 extra mana, but only does 2 extra damage. Yeah, not much to say about this card. I think the reason they put this card in was just so AI opponents in single-player adventures could play it against you. It's probably the main reason. I expect some AIs to play this against me, but that's about it. Next up we have Arcane Keysmith. This card is solid. Secrets usually cost 3 mana as a mage. I'm presuming it only discovers mage secrets. That wouldn't make a lot of sense otherwise. But secrets usually cost 3 mana. Here you're paying 1 extra mana for a 2/2 body, which is perfectly fine. And the fact that you get to discover a secret probably isn't super relevant because most of the time I'm just going to choose explosive runes. But it does have relevance because there are going to be some situations where you'll be able to pick something better, right? This will be gain 8 life when it comes into play. This will be get your opponent's next minion. This will be a counter spell to protect your board. The flexibility of this card is also very good. So I think this card is just going to be probably an auto-include in most mage decks. Obviously it doesn't go in like a Baku mage, but I think this card is very solid. I expect to see a lot of play. I think it's going to be a staple of mage for the foreseeable future. Next up we have Vexcrow. This card I don't think is very good. A lot of people have been talking about it as better than Violet Teacher and how it's going to be huge. And one, I don't think Violet Teacher was really the gold standard against which we were judging cards. But two, I mean, have people forgotten that cards like Hellfire exist? Like, I understand that we're probably going to see a lot fewer Duskbreakers just because a lot of the Dragon package for Priest has gone away. So that isn't as big of a thing. But I still imagine there are going to be a lot of games. You play Vexcrow, you have all your stuff to set up with him, and then your opponent just Hellfires the board and you look really stupid. Or guess what? One of those 2-cost minions had 1 health and another 2-cost minion had 2 health, and oh, I'm sorry, you just set yourself up to be defiled. I mean, there's so many ways in which this 4-mana 3/3 fails that I'm really just not excited. I think this guy just dies really easily a lot of the time. I don't think he gets you an insane amount of value. Granted, if you play this guy and any spell, you're probably getting like a 2/2 for your 2-drop, which means you're getting kind of like a 5/5 for your 4-drop, which is fine. I still just think that you'd rather run Violet Teacher over this in most instances. I could be wrong, but I don't think either way. I don't think this guy's going to really shake things up in a big way. So I'm giving him only 2 stars, even though I've seen a lot of people talk really highly about him. Next up, we have Bonfire Elemental. I mean, a lot of times this is just 5 mana, 5/5, draw a card, right? If you're playing a Zoo Mage and you have sort of an elemental package in there, which isn't really that crazy of a thought, then this guy is just a solid role player, right? The power level's where you want to be at in Constructed. He's he requires some setup, but he also helps provide the setup, right? This is one of the guys that's going to help you play your blaze callers and help you trigger your other elementals. And I think there's just enough elementals out there with fireflies, with steam surgers, with all this stuff, right? This is a card you play after you play water elemental, which is going to be one of these cards that probably makes it into that zoo type list. So I think this guy's good. I think he's solid. I think that in particular, because I expect Zoo Mage and Zoo Mage with an elemental package to be a thing, I'm going to rate this guy 4 stars on meta significance. I think he's gonna make it. Then we have Curio Collector. This card's bad. I mean, let's say I play this card, and then I draw 4 cards through some magical process. I draw 4 cards, right? Maybe I have Alaneth, maybe I'm playing Book of Specters, I don't know. But even if he's a 5-mana 8/8, I'm not super excited, right? Like, I could play a Bittertide Hydra. That's pretty much just more reliable. Obviously, this guy has upside compared to the Bittertide Hydra's downside in that case, but that's assuming I drew 4 cards. That is a lot of cards. I think this guy's just unplayable. I think he's going to be in some Trollden clips where some guy is going to be running Alaneth, and they're going to be running Deck of Wonders, and they'll play this guy, and then immediately Alaneth will draw them like 4 Scrolls of Wonders, and then the 3 extra cards, and he'll become like an 11/11, and then they'll go to their turn, and they'll play a bunch of stuff, and this guy will become a 20/20, and they'll smash face with him. But he's not a competitive card. He takes a bunch of setup, and most of the time what he's going to get you is just not good enough for constructed. So I pass on this guy. And then we have Toki Time Tinker. I love the art. That's the best. No, that's the most positive thing I can say about this card. I think adding a random legendary minion from the past to your hand is worth a little bit less than drawing a card. And a 6-mana 5/5 draw card isn't something that I really want to play in constructed anyways. So I just don't see this seeing a lot of play. It's a nice, fun meme card. Again, great art. But other than that, and that's it for the mages. That is all the cards. I will see you next time.